This is KGW News at 11.
Good evening. We begin at 11 with another night of protests in Portland. Thousands of people marched from Revolution Hall to the Alberta Arts District in Northeast. At one point, protesters walked onto I-84, shutting down the interstate.
They say they picked the Alberta District because of gentrification in that area. They continue to protest against racial injustice. You're taking a live look right now from Sky 8, where people are still marching late into the night tonight. This has been going on for several hours at this point. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dan Haggerty in the newsroom. Laurel Porter is joining us from the KGW studios.
Tonight's protests come on the heels of a major announcement from Portland Police earlier in the day. Police Chief Jamie Resch stepped down and announced Lieutenant Chuck Lavelle is now in charge as the new chief. KGW's Mike Benner joins us live downtown, where another protest group is growing by the Justice Center. Mike.
That's right, Laurel. A pretty good sized crowd out here at this late hour, though I have to say it is not nearly the size of the crowds we saw a lot of last week. And perhaps that has something to do with the rain, maybe not. Regardless, we're hearing a lot of chanting. There's been people playing the drums, and just within the last few minutes, we've noticed a lot of things tossed over the fence, but really no major confrontations with police. And maybe that has something to do with what appears to be a new tactic from police. That's a second layer of fencing on the east side of Southwest 3rd. So there are no police officers visible to the crowd. They are monitoring the situation from yards away. Now, what you're looking at right now, as you said, comes on the heels of a major shakeup at the top of the Bureau, and that was top of mind at demonstrations earlier tonight. Take a look.
Monday evening looked a lot like the many nights before. Countless demonstrators marching through Portland demanding change. As Sky 8 shows us, the protesters even occupied I-84 for a short time. If this crowd ever wondered, is this working? They aren't anymore.
I can definitely tell that they're listening. So they hear us, they notice us.
That's fantastic news. I love that.
I'm sure you guys saw in the news today.
Demonstrators are reacting to the bombshell out of City Hall early Monday afternoon. Police Chief Jamie Resch announced she is stepping down.
What PPB has not done publicly is stand up and say we will be the start of the change and take a step towards that change. Yesterday, I called Mayor Wheeler, and I asked him to support me and to support the Portland Police Bureau in being the beginning of the change that this city needs.
Replacing Resch as chief will be Chuck Lavelle, a black lieutenant who previously oversaw the Bureau's Community Services Division.
We have a lot of work to do, and we're gonna get busy doing that work. But I don't want to have too many words. I just wanted to share some things that were on my heart. Let you know I'm humbled. I'm a public servant. I'm going to show up every day with a servant's heart. I'm going to give the best service I can. I'm going to listen. I'm going to care about the community, and I'm going to care about the people in the organization. And all I can do is be me. And I'm looking forward to this journey.
The question is the community also looking forward to the journey? Some are.
It makes me feel some type of hope that us protesting and us coming out, it gives us hope that we're moving on and we're coming forward.
Others aren't so optimistic about the change at the top of the Bureau, saying a change in leadership doesn't necessarily mean a change to the system.
It's a distraction in my eyes. You know, I've seen Lieutenant Lavelle for a while in the police bureau, and I've got nothing bad to say about him as an individual.
I'm interested to see what he does, sure, but we still want the police to be defunded. It's kind of a distraction, if you ask me.
We had Danielle outlaw too, so I mean, right now that don't mean anything to me. I mean, we have to see, you know, what this person can do.
All right, back out here live in downtown Portland, the president of the Portland Police Association, Daryl Turner, released a statement calling Chief Chuck Lavelle a person of incredible courage and character, and he's looking forward to working with the chief in this new era in policing. It is worth noting that Jamie Resch is not leaving the Bureau. She'll be reassigned to a new position that has not yet been determined or at least publicized. In the meantime, another large crowd out here chanting outside the Justice Center. Will monitor the situation and pass along any updates if warranted. For now, back to you.
Mike Benner live at the Justice Center. Thank you, Mike. Police use of tear gas has also become a big issue during the protests. The group Don't Shoot Portland is suing to ban it. Mayor Ted Wheeler says tear gas should not be used unless there is a serious threat. He hasn't banned it yet, but says that remains an option.
We will eliminate CS gas provided that there are alternatives that do not require a higher use of force and do not put lives in danger. And so that is an open conversation, and it's one that the council is actively engaged in.
Doctors are also worried about how tear gas can spread COVID-19, since tear gas causes people to cough and cry and irritates the respiratory system. The mayor plans to reveal more about his goals for police reform tomorrow morning.
Nationally, defunding and disbanding police departments has become a rallying cry for protesters, and it appears that some calls are being heard. For instance, in Minneapolis, a majority of the city council there is pledging to dismantle its police department and recreate the public safety systems, while the mayor of New York vows to cut city funding to the NYPD for the very first time and redirect money to community resources instead. In Washington, D.C., congressional Democrats unveiled new policy reform legislation, including bans on chokeholds, no-knock warrants, and they also want to build a national database to track police misconduct.
We're here today in search of that vision, liberty and justice for all.
President Trump today adamantly opposed defunding or dismantling our country's police departments.
2 weeks after George Floyd died, thousands of people paid their respects in Texas today. This comes ahead of a private funeral tomorrow. And as NBC's Wendy Woolfolk reports, the former officer charged with Floyd's murder also made his first appearance in court.
The poignant public goodbye to a man whose death has gripped our nation. Thousands, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott, paying their respects to George Floyd.
George Floyd has not died in vain. His life will be a living legacy.
Most never knew him, but touched by his story.
So even though we don't know them, we still stand with them.
For hours they come, all wearing masks and observing social distance measures while moving through the sanctuary to pause in solidarity. A bittersweet return to Floyd's childhood home of Houston, flanked by other families of those also shot and killed by police. His brother remembers the high school football star as the father they never had.
He's the gentle giant, and he had his life taken away when he shouldn't have been. He should have been here speaking on somebody else's behalf.
In Minneapolis today, a judge set bail at $1 million for Derek Chauvin, the former officer seen in that now infamous video.
It's not enough for those cops just to be charged, but we need a conviction. We need to show people that, hey, look, no one is above the law.
Now, after 2 weeks of heartbreak and a country seemingly torn by protest.
I tell you what, if he was told he would have to sacrifice his life to bring the world together, and I knowing him, by knowing he would have did it.
A hope shared across the nation. Wendy Woolfolk, NBC News.
In the coronavirus pandemic right now, Oregon is seeing a spike in cases. Today, the state reported 114 new cases. This graph shows how many cases the state has seen over the past few months, with a big jump right there at the end. Just yesterday, 146 new cases were reported. That is the highest single-day total since the pandemic began. Doctors say the increase in case numbers is tied to several factors, including more widespread testing, contact tracing, and workplace outbreaks.
Outbreaks, for instance, like the one at Pacific Seafoods in Newport. At least 124 employees tested positive there. According to the company, most of the employees, all but 6 in fact, did not report any symptoms at all. The outbreak happened at the Pacific Shrimp Processing Facility. The company has suspended operations at all 5 of its Newport plants at this point. The Oregon Health Authority does not believe that there are any risks of this virus spreading through the food from that plant, but says there will be some risks to the Newport community.
We hope to minimize the risk by having identified the folks who have the virus, advising them to isolate at home, following up on their contacts, advising them to quarantine for 14 days.
Lincoln County is in phase 1 of reopening right now, but the outbreak has prompted some restaurants to shut down again.